is 6,000 Kenyan shillings, so it's around $35 per acre per month. And so they subscribe for a 30-day period, so that if it rains later, they don't have to subscribe for a whole year. They just subscribe for blocks. Usually our irrigation partners usually pay between 6 and 7 times a year, because obviously they're not always planting and sometimes it is raining. That investment over the course of perhaps a season of perhaps tomatoes or onions, for example. Tomatoes or onions, for example, the inputs might cost you between $600 or $700, maybe a little less, maybe a little more for an acre. So then the additional cost of water is not nothing, but closer to about $100, so about maybe 15, 20% over your overall input cost. And the ROI is fantastic. We're actually working with some people right now that are just finishing a harvest. One family is going to get about an 8x increase of their traditional versus their traditional income, and the other family that had a little bit better yield might get as much as a 15 to 20x increase versus their traditional farming practices. And then I think the second question you had was about whether people can, was it buy to own effectively? We're not quite there yet, but we will be. Right now, we just want to make sure that the farmers themselves are getting great value from the system. That obviously is the inputs, the water, and ultimately the market access. If they're making enough money, then they'll be able to buy the system in due time. Thank you.
Thank you. And there is another question over there.
Okay.
Maybe you can speak loud enough. The microphone is. And there is also a question. Maybe sir first. Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, just by broad-based, if you could just define what that means. Okay. Everybody. Okay. Yeah, that is a question we receive quite a lot as well. I had put up some statistics over the applications, 1,000 applications, and then, selecting about 30 agribusinesses or 30 companies. This one, the way we designed it was not as broad because we were trying to not only look at the need on the demand side, but also the supply side, because we're trying to facilitate financing at the end of the day. And with investors, with the private sector, there are specific types of businesses. For example, micro-entrepreneurs who are more informal in nature, probably like in the informal sector like you're talking about, they don't quite have a registered business, they don't have certain specific things that are required by an investor to put in capital. So we needed to kind of balance those two needs if we wanted to attract kind of the flow of capital into the sector. And I think for your question, there are quite a few broader-based accelerator programs. It's just a lot harder to get the financing. There are a few financiers, angel groups. There are some who are tapping into the diaspora remittances that are more suitable for that stage of business. But a long way of saying it, it was really about balancing the two. How do we start getting large amounts of capital, ticket sizes of 500 all the way up to the millions into the sector, and that's how we designed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mercy. And one more question, and then we'll have a second round of questions after the next presentation.
All right.
Oh, there are many questions. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, thanks very much. Obviously, this is a very good session. I think it's important, given that we need technology, we need innovations, but scaling up is not as straightforward. So the question is to my colleague from Rwanda. I think it's Mugisha. Is it possible to just share 1 or 2, 3 success factors for your innovation? Because we were doing some research also elsewhere, and it was clear that at some point you see that there are innovations which they have developed for farmers to use, but then after a year or two, they are no longer there. looks like the developers are facing some challenges. So for you, what would be the key success factors that you can maybe share with us for others also to learn? Thank you.
Thank you so much for the great question. One, I said two success factors. One, I would say the need for the solution somebody is bringing. Like for us, when we're bringing a free farmers market, there was really a huge need for the solution that we are bringing, because we really understood what the farmers really need, what they were suffering from, what the challenges they are really facing, which was like access to really market. Actually, right now, even if you look at when you bring something and you even see the government is like even asking you, how can we partner with you? How can you work with different rural farmers? For the over 7,000 farmers that we have received, actually we started with only 50 farmers as a trial, like selecting a few districts and just pick 10 farmers here, 10 farmers, 20 farmers, just with 50 farmers in 2020 during actually COVID-19. But by then, like the 7,000 right now, even have a huge application. Like the farmers were calling us like, hey, how can we work with you? We have the produce, we have everything. So then when you really, somebody already said like somebody will use your service because it is solving their problem. So they're using the service and we're able to successfully reach those farmers because we're able to provide a solution. And even on the side of customers, because we have like 5,000 users or customers that are buying from our platform, it's because also they're struggling where they can also access that fresh produce. So us bringing something that actually changes the situation or solves someone's issue is that which really, even itself, markets itself. We don't do even marketing. We will never see us on radio, on TV marketing for the services. But people, they tell by word of mouth. The last part is, I think, a team. People behind the vision, people that really, really work hard. Like myself, when I came back, I was sharing like how I came, and everyone was like, Norman, you're crazy, you're coming back all the way from the US, and you're coming back to engage in agriculture. Everyone is rooting to go, is trying to survive. As a friend told me, like, I've applied for more than like 20 times applying for a green card to go, and for you are coming back when you have the opportunity to work from there, leaving that job. But the passion behind what you really, really are looking. So when, like me as the vision bearer, I had to motivate other young people, like people, the team I'm working with, so that we can see, not even today we had only one customer, but they say, hey, in the next 5 years, we're going to have 1 million customers. So that the passion behind or driving that one, that is very, very important. So when you have the product that really works, that is solving people's needs, and you have the right team to work on that one, I think everything will be successful. Thank you. And definitely the last part, having also the system that really supports, like from the accelerator program, having those, like we have had mentorships, like other mentorships, like personal growth, and then like been struggling, seeing challenges. How do I manage myself as the CEO, but also manage the business? I think we've had those one-on-one sessions, and also even sharing from other successful entrepreneurs that how and asking them the challenges I'm facing or we're facing as a company, and they give you the guidelines, ask some similar questions, and they say, oh, we faced this, this is how we're able to approach this. This is how you deal with the donors, this is how, so that is also very, very important to look for, not as myself, but looking for the joining the accelerator program, support you and give you the right direction. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Norman. And I'd like to thank again our three entrepreneurs for all what they share. We don't have time for questions right now, but they will stay with us if you have more questions, and we have also time for questions afterwards. So let's applaud them. And Norman has mentioned it, the role of science is important. And now I'd like to call Dr. Godefroy Grosjean, who co-lead the CGI Hub for Sustainable Finance, which was established in 2022 to leverage the CGIAR scientific expertise and extensive network to accompany private investors through the transition to sustainable and climate-resilient food and water system. Godefroy will give us a presentation on the role of science in agribusiness. Please, Godefroy.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. Good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here today, and thanks again, Aminata, Norman, and Andrew for the inspiring presentation. I personally always get really inspired when I hear about the real-life stories of the new generation of sustainability-focused entrepreneurs, and especially in agri-food sector. So thanks a lot for that. As Stephanie said, what I'm going to do today is to complement the presentation from my colleague Mercy and give a bit some additional insight in how science can be integrated into the work we do to improve agribusinesses' bankability. So let me start with some high-level figures, and some of them were already mentioned, so I won't spend too much time on this. But essentially, when you look at food systems, you see that food systems contribute to about a third of global emissions. And at the same time, they are the main drivers of biodiversity loss, but also the sector that is most impacted by climate change. Now, when you look at the reality in terms of financing, you see that the sector is missing 300 to 350 billion a year to transform itself towards more sustainability. And just here, for Africa, there is a need for about 65 billion a year for agribusinesses to invest, to become more productive, but also to improve their sustainability over the time. So that's 3 out of 4 agri-SMEs in Africa are lacking access to capital. So our role as an institution that works to promote sustainable agriculture and so on, it's also to address that issue through the science that we produce. So now, let me just change the slide. Okay. So basically, the issue, and there has been already discussions on that, but why is that happening? Why don't we see sufficient capital going into ag and food sector? Essentially, the issue is a mismatch between capital supply and between capital demand and capital supply. On the demand side, what we see is that there is a lack of pipeline of bankable projects. So that's clear. So we need to have acceleration programs that accompany those businesses to become more sustainable, but that integrate sustainability as a core component of the acceleration program. But that's not enough. Agribusinesses also need to be rewarded for the positive impact they generate. So for instance, through lower cost of capital. And that could be partially financed through, for instance, climate finance streams. So that's on the demand side. On the supply side, there is a lack of robust risk-return impact data and frameworks. So we talk every day with investors, and they tell us, look, we are actually interested to invest into ag and food sector. But the challenge that we face is that we don't have the right tools, the right data to make informed decisions on our investments. So they essentially, although they're interested in the sector, they stay away from investing in. Okay, so now I don't have any slides anymore. Okay, thanks. So they stay away from investing in the sector. Sorry. Yeah. I know more or less my presentation, but it's useful to understand. So the investors, they lack the data they need, the analytical tools they need to make decisions on the investment of the sector. So here we tackle that through essentially 2 approaches. One is to work with Okay, sorry for that. To work with the banking sector. And the banking sector is essential because very often that's the first entry point for many ag SMEs to access finance. So we work with banks across the continent but also globally to provide them with tools that help them make informed decisions on the investments they make into ag and food sector by providing them data, and thereby with the target to unlock more finance through the banking sector. And that's mainly for small to medium-sized ticket size in terms of investments. Now, we also work with public and private investors in co-designing investment vehicles that are aligned with global targets in terms of adaptation, mitigation, and that are basically targeting medium to larger scale types of investment. And I will give examples of, concrete examples of work we're doing at the moment on that. But before getting to there, let me just focus a bit on our work and how we bring science to support accelerating businesses. So essentially, it's a multi-stage process, and Mercy already discussed that earlier. But at each stage, we work with partners, local accelerators, local incubators, and some of them are here to scale WIC, ACF today, because they are the ones who know the local context, the local business context best. So we work with them, but we bring the sustainability, climate smart angle into the whole process. From the origination part, so that's obviously the first step, originating companies. We use, of course, traditional financial-based analysis to look at the financial health of the company, but we couple that with rapid assessment techniques on ESG impact potential to estimate what is the impact potential this company could generate if it was changing the way it operates or the technologies it uses. So that's the first step. And then we move towards the due diligence, which is essentially doing the same, but going deeper in the financial analysis, but also on the ESG impact analysis, bringing, for instance, also climate risk modeling to really understand if I'm, for instance, a beans producer in Rwanda, to what extent am I going to be exposed to climate hazards in the next few seasons, right? So what is the risk for me as an entrepreneur given climate change impact? And then from there we move to the value creation, and some of the examples were mentioned just before. It's really about working with the entrepreneur, with the local accelerator programs, to integrate climate smart models, technologies into the business model, into the strategic planning of the companies and its implementation. And that's really essential to really then do matchmaking between the companies that have been through the programs and the investors we're working with. Okay, now digging a bit deeper into the value creation side. So what do we do exactly and what sort of approaches do we use? As I was saying, it's really about identifying opportunities for companies and agribusinesses through transition planning and technical assistance that is provided to really integrate climate, environmental risk, and opportunities in their business planning. So we start with the risk identification and quantification, and that's essential if we want to be able to reassure investors that the business may not be as risky as they think, that there is actually a solid business case, including when you take into account climate change. And then from there we move to do like climate smartness scoring. So essentially we look at the companies, we look at what sort of technologies, practices they're applying, and then we look at what they could do in addition to what they're really doing, and what this would generate in terms of impact. So here, as you see, for instance, on the right, okay, the laser doesn't seem to work, but anyway, on the right top part of the graph, you see an analysis that we did for companies across a range of KPIs. And on the left part, you see that's the current status of the companies in terms of mitigation impact, adaptation impact, productivity. And then you see that if that company was moving on, this is a set of 4 companies, they were moving toward implementing new technologies and practices, they could substantially improve the impact they generate on the climate side, adaptation and mitigation, but also on the productivity side. So that means generating also more revenues and a healthier business model for the company. So we do that at the level of climate smartness, but we look also at gender KPI. And we use a technology adapted for 2X, and again, the same thing. We look at the gender smartness score of the company at the moment and what they could do to improve it over time. Again, to really give tools for the company to improve on that gender KPI. So through that process, we're able to do baselining and developing monitoring solutions for monitoring the impact of the new strategy the company has developed. And that's essential to then reassure investors that this company can generate, of course, a better business model over time, but also generate more impact. And that will likely attract a lot more finance to the sector. Now moving to the supply of capital side. So what do we do? As I said, we work with 2, let's say, pillar of activities, the banking sector, and then working with asset managers in developing investment vehicles targeting the sector. And I give 2 examples of work we currently doing. If I can change the slide. Okay. I thought I've been over time and I was cut off already. Oh, I am. So I will be quick. So basically, we have developed an AI-powered application that is called Impact SF Analyzer, which is targeting the banking sector. And essentially, think of a tool that can help a bank integrate climate and environmental risk into the credit scoring systems that they have. So essentially, the tool is developed in a way that so that a bank officer in wherever the bank is located can put a location in the tool, the location of the specific investment they're looking at, and then choose the type of crop or livestock that this investment is related to. And then the tool gives automatically outputs in terms of the suitability of that specific crop of livestock in that specific location, the crop productivity, and that's key because it actually predicts what will be the productivity of that specific investment into the next few seasons. And that's essential for banks because they want to, that will determine the extent to which a company can pay back a loan, right? So this productivity prediction is very important. And then it also provides information in terms of what agroclimatic hazards are actually going to drive this improvement or decline of productivity in the next few seasons. And that comes with recommendations in how the company or the farmer can manage the risk by implementing new climate-smart agriculture practices. So it's not only about understanding the risk, but also understanding how the farmer can manage those risks through better practices. And through the loan officer of the bank can start advising their clients, their farmers, their agri-SMEs in terms of how to manage their investment. And that can really help unlocking finance, supporting banks to better assess risk, to promote better risk mitigation practices, and eventually helping banks report on ESG impacts and disclosures legally required in many places. And finally, and I promise that's my last slide, if you can somehow see it. Okay, no, it seems to work. So another way is to work with impact investors, or basically public and private investors that are interested to design investment vehicles specifically targeting the sector. So with Responsibility, which is an impact investor from Switzerland, we set up the first science-based climate-smart food system fund. It's a debt fund, 150 million, that invests in agri-SMEs in Asia, Latin America, Africa, and which has a technical assistance facility of 10 million. And through that TA facility, the funds accompany the investees from beginning to end. And our role has been to really bring the science in that process, from the developing the investment strategy and integrating a food system approach in that strategy, developing the impact framework, and then analyzing climate risk and impact through the pre-due diligence, the due diligence, and eventually developing a monitoring, reporting, and verification framework for that investments. And this type of tool or vehicle is essential because it tests approaches to basically bring science-based approaches in investments, reassuring investors that they can actually invest in the sector, generating revenues, but also impact and basically quantify those impacts. So the target with this sort of experience is, of course, to build a framework so that other investors can replicate this type of funds and really bring investment at scale within food systems. So I stop here. I thank you very much for your attention and looking forward to the discussions.
Thank you very much, Godefroy, and sorry for rushing you. Now we are going to discuss this topic with 5 panelists to look at their point of view on acceleration, also on how to attract investment and what are the challenges for those companies. I would like to invite the 5 panelists now to the stage. Vivian Sakoe is a relation manager at the National Bank of Commerce of Tanzania and has a strong background in agribusiness. Please, Vivian. I'd like also to invite Salome Nganga, who is a financial inclusion specialist at IFDC and manage the implementation of the agribusiness program to scale. Angelus Kamande, who is an investment strategy and finance expert with over 14 years of experience in supporting SMEs to growth and scale, is the head of investment advisory services at AECF. Dr. Inga Jacobs-Mata, who has just been appointed as the new EMI CGIAR Water System Director for Growth and Inclusion and leads the CGIAR's Ukama Ustawi Regional Integrated Initiative for East and Southern Africa. Two of the accelerators were part of her work. And finally, Uma Sani from the Women Investment Club of Senegal. She is a coach and also an expert in women empowerment, social entrepreneurship, and gender equality. Thank you all for being here today. So I'd like to start with the first round of questions, and I will start directly with the bank. Vivian, can you tell us, from the bank of point of view and from all what we have heard, what are the primary challenges that agribusiness face in accessing finance, and why do these challenges persist today?
Thank you. From financing perspective, I think the major challenge first, we do not have much information, specifically financial information or data or background for agribusiness enterprises, which hinders financial institutions on how best can we make decisions. Secondly, there are major challenges on production level as well as on market level, as in many of agribusiness enterprises have limited access on agri-inputs that limit their production, as well as they have limited access to good markets which can sustain their productions. Those are major challenges that I think agribusiness enterprises face, which hinders financial institutions to support them.
Thank you very much. Salome, and you are right sitting behind, next to her. Can you explain why, at to scale, you are supporting or incorporating enterprises support into the organization? What is the goal of the work you are doing with to scale?
Great. Thank you, Stephanie, for that question. And for most people, they always feel that projects that we have been implementing for over 10 years now. The main reason the IFDC came on board to support the agribusinesses is in the gap we could see in the market. So as we try to help and support farmers with soil and plant nutrition, then there was still a gap, and that is where we came on board with an entrepreneur support programs that help to build more of a holistic agribusiness environment, where we look at the entire agri-value chains, right from the production, looking at the soil and plant nutrition, market research and market expertise, all the way to supporting farmers take what they're producing to the market, in addition to looking at what are the impacts of what the farmers do, and also what agri-processors are doing in supporting climate change and change in the environment. So for TwoScale, we're supporting the entire end-to-end production in agri-value chains, as we're also looking at the global targets of food and nutrition security as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. AECF has also been working in the space of agribusiness and supporting companies for quite a long time. And based on your experience, Angelus, what obstacles do you encounter when attempting to connect accelerated business and investors?
Thank you, Stephanie. And it's a very good question, one that we get very often, as you can imagine. I think the most important thing to remember is that you can't address access to finance in isolation. And what usually people isolate is the journey that the SME needs to walk. And part of what we've done is taken a lot of time to understand. AECF has been working with agri-SMEs for the last 14 years plus. So what we've put under our radar is what exactly do financiers require? And we've established a very elaborate system that begins with an assessment of what have they done, what is the journey, if they have already been through a different investment readiness program or a program that builds their capacity, building that on top of what we currently do. So once we have this very good understanding, we have a long-standing partnership with a lot of the investors in the market. So we help to connect these companies to their investors. But some of the challenges we still see, even as we go through this elaborate process, is the ability to provide consistent information. Information is one of the biggest challenges because over time, you present your financial statements, but they are not in the right format, or you don't even have financial information. How is your governance structure? Is that documented, or is it a story you're going to tell a financier? And also your people. Do you have sufficient capacity to drive the business for the next 3 or 5 years? But if you have all these things lined up, I think your fundraising journey or your access to finance journey is going to be easier.
Thank you very much for this answer. And you talked about information. Godfrey mentioned science before. Encouraging scientists to participate in Agribusiness Acceleration program can be challenging due to the cost and resource demand of research and development. Inga, can you tell us more about strategy that can be employed to attract a greater number of scientists to actively engage and lend their expertise to acceleration programs?
Sure, thanks, Stephanie. So I think, Mercy and Godfrey really made the case, right, for the role of science in supporting agribusiness acceleration. Angelo too, confirming the need from the investment side. We heard from the accelerator partners, the agri-SMEs, that they need targeted technical assistance, which we as CGIAR, we provide, in different ways: gender and social inclusion, enabling environment support, investment readiness, and so, as well as the technical aspects around scaling a particular innovation. But the scientists also need a similar kind of support in helping, make the right connections. Also, it's a new way of doing our science, right? That's more responsive to the agribusiness ecosystem. And so something that we're really excited to be announcing this year, in fact, is a scaling fund. It's really trying to implement this mandate that we have as a regional initiative for East and Southern Africa in integrating our science into the agribusiness ecosystem, supporting agribusinesses to scale their innovations. We're also building on a long track record through the CGIAR research programs. One was Roots and Tubers, where we provided $8 million to scale 8 innovation packages. And then we've also built this very standardized approach, which we call innovation scaling readiness, innovation package and scaling readiness, which is really a way for us to standardize how we report on our scaling, how we're learning, that it's not just piecemeal, one project at a time. So this scaling fund is something that we're announcing this year. It's meant to support those innovations, those teams, those initiatives in East and Southern Africa who are scaling innovations to help them to scale into other countries. So ensure sort of a spillover. Again, coming to, I think, one of the colleagues who asked the question, about the broad-based acceleration. This is just one scaling pathway. We know that agribusiness acceleration is just one. It's not always suitable. So the accelerator partners, the businesses that we support, do have a really strong scaling strategy. They can reach, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of beneficiaries. So we want to continue to do that, but to also ensure that they can get an extra boost, an extra investment boost to make the investment case, basically.
Thank you very much, Inga, for this announcement as well about the scaling fund. Now I'd like to give the floor to Uma. Women Investment Club has never ventured in agribusiness before, and with the Accelerator Senegal, they did. So how does this tie into your broader goals, and why did you venture into this agribusiness acceleration space?
Thank you, Stephanie. WIC's goal is to bring women entrepreneurs to the front, to ease access to financing to women entrepreneurs. We just realized that about 70% of the women who apply to our programs or who integrate our programs are in the agri-food sector. So basically, we could just not forget about them, and we needed to find the right approach to answer the issues that they face and to find mechanisms that are adapted to them and also that are dedicated to them. So it was just, I think, a logical path for us to dig into the agribusiness sector and find out how, since this population is so big inside, I mean, more than 50% of entrepreneurs are women, and if these women, more than 50 of them are in the agricultural and in the agribusiness sector, we just couldn't forget about them. And it was essential for us to address these businesses, and we just realized that with the proper technical assistance and the proper financial tool, we can just achieve wonderful things. Aminata here is is an example of what we can do when we target and that when we address the right issue and that when we point out the right problems. So it's just, I mean, the right path and just a continuity of what we're doing right now.
Thank you very much. And taking example of Aminata again, her company did get a discounted rate in investment because of the inclusion of climate into her business model. And then I'd like to give the floor back to Viviane. Given the increasing significance of climate change, how can bank, or your bank, incorporate climate risk assessment into your loan evaluation process?
Thank you. I think for quite some time, financial institutions who are involved in lending to agribusiness have had experiences on challenges of climate change, and incorporation of or taking into account climate change in assessment can be done through partnerships. I think there are different partners whom banks can get into relationship with and assist on having the data which can assist in prediction of how climate can affect different agribusiness enterprises that are being financed by banks. So I think through partnerships, we can incorporate that in our assessments.
Thank you very much. And when we talk about partnership, we talk partnership with also these companies such as ToScale and ACF. So to Salome, why is acceleration a crucial element for you?
Great, thank you, Stephanie. And I think when we talk about acceleration, and I think in line with the question that has been asked, why do the Food Systems Accelerator concentrate only on agribusinesses that are in acceleration stage? Is that when you go to the history of most of the development work, most organizations were looking at incubating agribusinesses, and when they did that, they left agribusinesses there. And when we talk about incubation, at times when we look at even when a chicken is trying to hatch the eggs and the eggs are still in the incubation stage, if you bear the chicks and leave them like that, then most of the time they won't survive. They need the mother to be there to walk with the chicks through the journey until they can be able to feed themselves. So we're living in an age where we're looking at what has been done previously. And when you look at most of the agribusinesses in Africa, you'll find that most of them always miss somebody to walk with them through the journey. So at Acceleration, we're looking at where these agribusinesses, they've already started looking at their business models, and they have already a proven product in the market. But how do they take this product to scale? They have already been introduced to the innovations, but how do they scale these innovations and take these innovations to the next level? They need somebody to handhold them, and that is where we are coming in with our acceleration solutions to handhold these agribusinesses to get them to the next level. It's at this stage that most of these businesses are looking at investments. So what kind of investments will work for these agribusinesses? They're looking for human resource and capital, which at times they don't have. So acceleration means taking what has already been incubated and hatched and growing it to become a full hen or a full chicken that can be able to reproduce and spread its wings into a more regional and global network where these agribusinesses can become more competitive and be able to compete even in a global arena where they can be able to support everybody else across the value chain. And that is where we are bringing on board all the other partners, investors. We're bringing on board other agribusinesses who can be also mentors, and where agribusinesses can be able to exchange notes and learn from each other, where agribusinesses can come together and push policies together to be able to influence change within the African context. So when we talk acceleration, it's a wide topic, and we are happy actually to be part of the Food Systems Accelerator for this CGIAR. And we are happy with the cohort that we've been supporting, and we've heard from them that they've seen great help that is helping them get to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You talked about accompanying those companies all along the way. And then we, as the researcher, we say we have to provide this technical assistance, climate smart practices, etc. Angelus, how do you ensure that those innovative and climate smart solutions are effectively communicated to potential investors? How do the bank understand the solution, and what can you do about that?
Thank you. And that's a very good question. And for us, part of the reason we enjoyed working with this particular accelerator was the fact that we could see evidence-based climate smart practices and analysis and tools that give us insight into what exactly is the business doing and how is that increasing their investment profile. How is that reducing the climate risks that are prevalent in the business? So what we've done is, by applying these tools in conversations, we introduced the element of operational de-risking. So as a result of presenting an element of de-risking that is different from just financial de-risking, the financial institutions are interested, and especially those ones who are aligned to the climate topic. And it's made it easier for us to engage from that particular front. So I can say, by taking a step and already aligning your business to climate smart practices, you're already giving yourself an element of operational de-risking. So I'd say it's something that we advocate, and actually someone did ask how can we make it broader. So I think it's a challenge to the ICRA team. How can we make this broader and more accessible to agri-SMEs across Sub-Sahara and beyond?
Thank you. I would like to give back the floor to Viviane before we go back to the acceleration program themselves. So the two of them, Salome and Angelus, talk about de-risking and what they do to try to attract potential investors. But you as a bank, what are the strategy or solution that your bank has implemented to address this challenge and mitigate the risk associated with the financing agribusinesses?
We have taken several actions in de-risking. First, there are different, on climate challenges, banks right now are co-financing insurance, weather-based, in order to tap to solution the challenge of climate change that farmers are facing. So, for example, if you're financing a coffee input to a coffee farmer, we embed our insurance package as part of the loan, so that we are trying to de-risk the issue of weather. Also, we have different partners whom we are working, who are providing solution. For example, we have different guarantors who are guaranteeing agri-related loans in the event of default that mainly may be triggered to external factors, weather being one of them. They can assist with facilitation of loan repayment to these farmers so that the farmer can still progress with farming without having to bear the previous outstandings that he may be having. So those are major de-risking models that we are using on major climate challenges that our farmers are facing.
Yes, thank you very much. And you talk about this bundling of having insurance and other products. And I'd like to give the floor to Inga, talking about ICRA Zambia, because I believe that is one thing ICRA Zambia has tried. So could you provide insight into the key takeaway accomplishment of ICRA Zambia pilot program for agribusiness acceleration?
Sure. So ICRA is a project, World Bank funded project where we're scaling, climate smart agriculture innovations. We implemented a accelerator in Zambia, and there we spoke about not only bundling the different CSA climate smart agriculture innovations, but also the partners. So you bundle partners and you bundle innovations, because what we found was that oftentimes a business, they have a really good model, a scaling model for their solar pumps, right? But maybe they don't have the database, the access to a network to be able to scale that out to 100,000 farmers. Or they're not connected to a partner that can provide like a microfinance product, right, to enable more farmers to be able to afford it. So what we did was we played the role of a matchmaker, helping these agribusinesses find each other in different ways. Aquaculture had a whole bundle of partners. The seeds, drought-tolerant seeds, they had a whole bundle of partners. And we gave them $50,000 to reach 75,000 farmers to access. Now that's a little. That's ambitious, right? It's less than $1 a farmer if you think about it. So the scaling strategy was really smart on the part of these agribusinesses. And then our role was to support them through that, to help make sure that they work synergistically as a partnership model. And now 2 years down the line, we've reached 360,000 farmers who now access these different types of innovations in different ways. And we've secured additional investment of over 200% of the original investment put into the program. But it's not all sunshine and roses. Let's just be honest with ourselves. Acceleration is not for the faint-hearted. And the point, I think it was Angelo that made the point that, you do need to strengthen the pipeline. So yes, we operate acceleration at this stage of agribusiness development, but there's this whole growth that needs to happen, ensuring that you work with universities to make sure that graduates have the right kind of skills demanded by these SMEs, or that SMEs know how to also make use of some of these types of new ways of thinking. There's ways that you need to also focus on startups, on incubation. So that's a whole sort of leg of work we haven't even touched on here that sort of feeds and supports that ability to accelerate at the end of the day.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to ask my final question before I'll give the floor to the public. As you say, Uma, before, you focus on women, and it's unique and commendable. But could you explain the reasoning behind this focus, this very specific focus, and the impact you have on targeting women entrepreneurs?
Thank you again. Why women? Because we just found out that, as I said, I think about 27% of women are entrepreneurs. Most of the time, they don't even realize they are entrepreneurs because they are just doing it to survive. They're just doing it to feed their family. They're just doing it to have an activity to gain some money. But they're doing wonderful things. When you just dig into it, you realize that the place that women have inside their community is much more important than we realized. And it was really important for us to be able to help these women grow and not stay at the stage where they are just doing entrepreneurship for survival. They can grow bigger, and they will grow bigger if we just can find the right tools when we talk about technical assistance, but also access to finance. And WIC was built on this, this idea that women need to be accompanied, and we need to find a way to make a much more inclusive economic ecosystem for women to be able to rise and for them to be able to become the champions that they need to be. WIC was created in 2016. We are in Senegal and Ivory Coast as of today, and the impact that we were looking for, what we were able to reach, is far more than what we were expecting. And as I said, the impact is not only for the women, but the immediate family, the community, the neighborhood, the village, everybody can benefit from the work that women are doing when their businesses are growing. So this is something, I mean, that at first we were thinking about it without exactly knowing how we will be able to do it. And we really wanted also to have tools built by women for women. And actually this is our signature. And this is how we were able to achieve as of today. And the impacts are economic, social, environmental. With the last accelerator that we did with actually ECRA, it was really to address this climate change issue, to educate women entrepreneurs about climate and environment, and how as entrepreneurs they have an impact on it, and how they can have a positive impact on it, and how they can educate their community to have an impact on it. And today we are about 6 months after the end of the program, and we can already see the result. We already see how they have integrated all these elements into their business model. We see how their businesses have switched into the development that they first were thinking of, and how they improve their businesses, but also how they were able to have access to finances that they couldn't think about before. And so, yeah, it was just, I mean, the impact are really great, and we can see the result in a really short delays, and this is much more encouraging for us.
Thank you very much, Uma. We can thank for our panelists very much for their inputs. And I'd like to open the floor for questions. Let's start by a first round of questions. Yes, sir. I don't know. It's here.
Well, thank you very much for the presentations. We have one question straightforward to bankers and the research institution. Is that referring to the presentation made earlier by colleague, a farmer from Rwanda? I saw the photo that shows clearly the level of intensity that smallholder farmers are encroaching wetlands. That's a clear sign of climate change affecting food systems. Therefore, what our researchers are telling and how banks are getting appetite to finance those smallholder farmers who are actually millions and millions, and where our food system is actually depending on. How sustainable their farming system will be. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this question. Is there any other question? Madam over there, and then sir at the back. Oh, as you want. Yeah. Thank you. And I'll take a third question before I'll give the floor to the panelists.
Yeah, hi. My name is Camille from Cosmos Innovation Center. We are an agribusiness incubator based in Ghana. So I couldn't agree more with most of the challenges that the panel highlighted. What I've found out from our work with agribusinesses in Ghana is that a lot of work is being put into de-risking them, investor readiness and all that. But interest rates from the financial institutions is still a very huge hindrance. So from the perspectives of the financiers, what needs to be done in order to bring the interest rates down? And are there any innovative models that you are considering to bring interest rates down for SMEs? Thank you.
A very interesting question, thank you. So maybe Viviane, you want to take the first and the last question?
Okay, thank you for your good question. I'll give you, we have a live model that we have in Tanzania that the government, together with a financial institution, have worked on. The government of Tanzania, through the Bank of Tanzania, have incentivized financial institutions into lending at lower rates when lending to agribusinesses. The government of Tanzania is providing funding, is providing SMR relief when financial institutions lend to agribusiness. So if the bank was supposed to bring SMR to BOT, let's say 1 billion, lent to, after lending, when the financial institution has issued loan to agribusiness and has reported to the Bank of Tanzania, the Bank of Tanzania will relieve the exact amount that the amount has been disbursed to agribusiness and will be waived as an SMR to be submitted to BOT. So through that, it's like the government of Tanzania is providing funding to banks for lending in agribusiness. So that, in return, lowers our cost of funding, which allows us to lend at lower rate in comparison when we are providing normal loans to SME or other sectors. So currently, we have that arrangement. That's why in Tanzania right now we are able to providing loans to agribusinesses at lower rates compared to other sectors. So that is one of the innovation that, together with the government and financial institutions, have managed to work around, and it has already been implemented and is creating impact to farmers by providing lending at cheaper rates.
Thank you very much. Does someone of you want to add something? No. Okay, I'll give the floor to Godefroy to answer the second question.
Thank you very much for the question, and I think you're spot on the question, and I fully agree with the comments that you made. I mean, on one hand, so on the scalability of acceleration programs and of bringing science in this sort of acceleration programs. From our point of view, I mean, we realize that we can't, as a science organization, we can test tools, we can test programs, but we cannot be partners of every single acceleration programs in Africa to provide this TA. This just doesn't work given the capacity that we have. So what we need to focus on, from my point of view, is to work with partners and develop standards and tools with them that can then be scaled and essentially used by partners and acceleration programs and incubation programs across Africa and other regions without necessarily the need for us to be part of it, right? So developing standards, developing tools is absolutely essential. Otherwise, we will face a bottleneck because we won't be able to reach the scale we want to reach given the scale of the problem. So that's totally, I mean, I fully agree with that. The second point, Also, spot on, when we work with banks to test and to implement the tool that we currently developing to integrate climate risk into credit scoring. First, we select banks that are aligned in terms of what they want to achieve. So it's not only, we tell them it's not only about risk assessment, because that's part of the question, but it's also about impact assessment and risk mitigation solutions. So the tool we're developing helps banks assess and quantify the potential risk, climate-related risk in a specific location, but also comes with risk mitigation solutions, so climate-smart practices, technologies that are recommended so that the farmers or the agri-SME can mitigate the risk it will face in the next few seasons. So essentially, the idea is to enable banks to start rewarding the farmers that implement the right practices through lower cost of capital, because then they have a basis to say, okay, you have a certain risk, but you implementing XYZ practices, and so you're lower risk than you were previously, so the cost of capital should be lower. Now, of course, the bank has to play the game, so to say, but then the next phase for us is to really work with larger scale investors that invest into these banks, including climate finance actors. Because more and more those banks will have to report on ESG, on impact and so on, and they will have to attract capital from global market and also from climate finance to then on-lend to farmers. But then it could come with the condition saying we invest into you as a bank with the condition that you use these sort of tools to manage risk but also maximize impacts and on-lend to the more, let's say, virtuous farmers at preferential rates. So that's the strategy, and I think totally spot on that point, and that's key if we want to achieve scale.
Thank you. I don't know if Norman, you wanted to add something to the first question related to the scale, but I think we have. Okay. So, yes, Inga, maybe you can give the closing word before.
Well, it was actually just to respond to the question by the colleague around how we support agribusinesses in their sustainability endeavors, and also linked to Godfrey's point. In fact, we have a session, I think it's on Thursday, right, Mercy, as part of the masterclass where we're talking about impact measurement and the kind of metrics that we help to develop. From a reporting perspective, I think we've now, worked out a methodology of how we can support agribusinesses. But then in addition to that, I think there's also something to be said for the support we provide in terms of enabling environment. The Rwanda example was listed around wetland encroachment, but we also support, agribusinesses in Central African Republic, working on that work in the fisheries sector, for example. So how do you ensure sustainability of fishing, right? And that's on the one hand helping the agribusiness navigate what these regulatory barriers are, what are the incentives, right, to promote this kind of behavior. But then it's also about how you can help them also create awareness, public awareness to the community in terms of sustainability. And that's just one example. There are many others. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think it was a very good intervention. Also mentioning that on Thursday we have a masterclass on impact. And I think this is also very important, as was mentioned by several of our speakers. How do we measure impacts and how do we know that it can definitely help the business and access to more financing? I'd like to thank you all for your participation today, for the interaction, and I would like to thank all the speakers, and I wish you a bon appétit, as we say in French.